I want to welcome you to our CloudCon Integration Expert Breakout Sessions. This is the session for Darren Cunningham, Vice President at Informatica Cloud. Darren, welcome to CloudCon Integration.
Thanks, Vance. Great to be here.
In his post, Darren leads the Informatica Cloud product and customer initiatives for enterprises and ISVs. He focuses on SaaS, platform as a service, and data integration, including migration, data synchronization, and quality. And Darren knows well the importance of making sure that data from on-premise to the cloud is high quality and can be relied on, as he's held posts at Salesforce.com, Business Objects, and Lucidera. In his session this morning, Eliminate SAS Sprawl with Cloud Data Integration, Darren is going to tell us how cloud and cloud integration is driving what they call a new hybrid IT model for computing. And this is pretty exciting because it lets companies and individual users have clean and consistent data across their on-premise, cloud, and even mobile applications. Just a quick reminder before we begin, if you haven't already done so, please take a look at Darren's slides. They're available right now for download in the breakout room. You'll also note that we've got some other terrific supplemental resources, data sheets, white papers here that you can review. And we love to make this interactive as possible. So if you have a question or comment for Darren, just type it into the Submit a Question box. And now, Darren, the floor is yours.
All right, great. So in today's overview from Informatica, as Vance mentioned, we're going to talk about this sprawling SaaS situation that many of you are facing in your organizations and really try to point to some solutions and some ways to really approach solving the problem. And first and foremost, when we talk about cloud computing, it shouldn't be a new concept, right? Whether it's software as a service, platform as a service, or infrastructure as a service, where we at Informatica see most of the energy and where most of the conversation starts is in the area of software as a service. It's in the area of application adoption. We're seeing increasingly organizations discussing and looking towards platform as a service, and integration is a key part of a platform as a service strategy. But in the sort of 1.0 era of the cloud, most of the focus has been on applications, and that's what we're going to talk about today. How do you really get your arms around all these applications coming into your business and make sure that you're eliminating silos and getting the maximum ROI that you expect from these investments? So I wanted to put forward some industry information. This is probably all very familiar to you all in that a lot of the actual energy now around adoption of the cloud is in the enterprise. I think for the first few years, certainly small to medium-sized businesses were the first movers. We saw a lot of adoption in departments and divisions of large companies. But what's starting to change, really there's been a pendulum swinging over to the corporate IT organization. As one CIO said to me not too long ago, he said, look, we can either get on this cloud train or get run over by it. And now we're talking to our largest customers about really how do they work with the business and really ensure there's a unified strategy around cloud computing. So I thought some of these data points were worth sharing here today. 76% of enterprises now have a formal cloud strategy. 74% are using cloud, will increase their spend by 20%. So a lot of growth in this area, certainly relative to traditional on-premise technologies. Many organizations have truly become cloud first, which I find interesting. It doesn't seem like very long ago where you had to justify why you would be making a purchase of a cloud-based solution. Now it seems like you have to justify why not cloud. So what a transition, what a transformation we've seen in a very short time. With a lot of the adoption now, as you see, 90% of cloud decisions and operations involve IT, which is a very good thing and I think ultimately reflects a maturing of this market and of this area. So what we at Informatica like to talk about is really this concept of hybrid IT. You know, there are organizations out there, certainly there's a lot of startups that will like to present the world as cloud only. And that's fair enough. If you and I were starting a company tomorrow, we might not have any servers, right? But many of you are in organizations that have a lot of legacy systems. You probably even have mainframe systems. So the fact is it's not an either or, it's an and. And now what you need to figure out is how to really make sure you're in the conversation and in fact, if not driving it, and thinking through your overall cloud strategy, software as a service, platform as a service, and infrastructure as a service, and how does that tie into your existing application portfolio, and which systems are moving to the cloud and when, and how are you going to ensure that you're not creating more data fragmentation, you're not creating silos of information, and you truly can have a consistent, consolidated view of the business as you move to these new technologies. So welcome to the era of hybrid IT. Now, one of the things that I think is also interesting, I've heard many industry analysts make this point, is in many respects, this is the new best of breed. There are many organizations that like to present this as single stack type of approach. But the reality is, from what we see at Informatica, is it's really all about choice. It's about making the right decision. I can tell you at Informatica, a company of about 2,000 employees, we have over 40 SaaS applications in our organization. And we're what I would characterize as a fairly mid-sized organization, certainly relative to some of you on the call today. So you're really seeing whether you're part of it or not. I have talked to centralized IT folks who have said to me, oh, we don't have any cloud in our company. We are only doing private cloud. Those people are really kidding themselves, because whether you know it or not, these cloud applications are in your business. One takeaway I would leave you with today is go and do an audit. Go and find out what is actually running where. You may be surprised. You may know that you're running Salesforce, but you may not realize that you're running actually 30 instances of Salesforce in your company thanks to a number of acquisitions you made or purchases that were made in the line of business with credit cards. So the first takeaway I would leave you with is really go out there and find out what technologies are being used to integrate these systems. How are these different groups getting data in and out of these systems? And is there really a holistic strategy to tackle this requirement? And as you can see here from Forrester and other industry analysts, a very high percentage of really reasons not to adopt. When you talk about one of the barriers to adoption, integration is always high on the list. We've seen integration surpass security as really the key enabler of cloud success, and really security's gone from an objection to a question. You're always going to ask about security. It's very important, especially as you're moving data into other organizations' servers. But integration is now really right up there as a first-class citizen, something you need to think through early and often, and you really can't afford to be pushing out to phase 2 or phase 3 of an implementation. So what's so different? Many of us have been in this industry for a long time. We've seen these trends come and go. We've dealt with shadow IT. We've seen data marts proliferate, and we've talked about that certainly in the business intelligence market for a long, long time. One of the things that's different here is that the cloud decisions, and I like this headline, this is from a recent ZDNet article, that cloud decisions are no longer in the IT department's hands. The suits have taken over. So this is from a new report out that was recently published. I believe it was Capgemini. They did some survey research that showed that really this phenomenon of the business driving not only the purchasing decisions, but the actual implementations is increasing. It's on the rise. So it requires you in the IT organization to rethink your model, to rethink how you're going to align with these different groups. As one of our customers said to me not long ago, if I can add a field to salesforce.com, I can add it within 5 seconds, 5 minutes maybe, if there's some process I need to follow. If it takes me 6 months to go and get the data that I need for that field because I have to go through the IT organization's change management process, that's not going to work for me. So how do you satisfy that need for speed with the same requirements you're going to have for governance and really ensuring the trust, especially as it relates to touching your production systems? So at Informatica, we recognized early on that there were 4 key audiences that really were involved in the cloud integration and data quality decision-making and implementation as this adoption grows in all aspects of the enterprise. So for the next part of this presentation, I want to walk you through some of the requirements by these different groups and speak to how you can tackle and think through integration and master data management in these areas. So the first group is the software as a service administrators and the business analysts. These are people who often don't have a lot of technical expertise. They understand the business process. They know what they need to get, and they need it quickly. And these folks, as I said earlier, they don't necessarily have time to wait. And so what they often do is they start with writing some scripts. They start pulling data into Access databases, quick and dirty data extracts. And this starts to become a bit of a problem. It's a little bit like the Gremlins analogy, where you've got this little nice SaaS application that's great. It's doing some nice things for your one particular group, but then it sort of snowballs and becomes a nightmare. And we've seen that as you start to pull data in and out of it, and there's not really much in the way of compliance and a standardized approach. So we believe that integration applications are the right approach for this audience. They need solutions designed for them. And I like this quote from one of our customers who said, when they were asked, why didn't you use more of a heavyweight publish and subscribe architecture from a vendor that you already had in-house? And the customer said, I could be done before I even got an email completed to that developer on what he would need to start a project. So there is a lighter weight set of requirements here. There are well understood APIs typically from the cloud applications vendor, and they need tools that they can meet that need for speed. So what we did at Informatica, I'll show you the interface in a moment, we built a completely different user experience from the ground up, recognizing again that this was back in 2006. These weren't the people we knew, so we needed to build a user experience that really could meet their requirements. We then built a multi-tenant repository that's in the cloud, and we allowed you to actually get started right away by going to the website, informaticacloud.com, and signing up for a trial. And what then happens is we have what we call our secure agent, which is the runtime engine of the Informatica Cloud. This is really what's doing the sort of heavy lifting behind the scenes. That, more often than not, is going to sit behind the firewall, but increasingly we're seeing customers wanting to host that agent in the cloud, and we can do that too. But generally, the use cases we've seen over the last couple of years have primarily been cloud application to on-premise system, and I'll share with you a couple of the business process examples in a minute. So what we did is we built a multi-tenant repository, allowing you to do the work in a user experience, especially if you're a CRM administrator or a SaaS application administrator, a line of business manager, somebody who didn't necessarily have the technical background. We wanted to give these folks self-service. So this is the architecture of Informatica Cloud. Data moves bidirectionally between systems. We don't host your data in the cloud, so it's a multi-tenant metadata repository. We don't cache or store your data. And then we've focused on delivering out the connectivity you need to deliver on these application integration requirements. We then set out to build a specific focused set of applications for data loading, data synchronization, data replication, and you can see the list at the bottom. It's important to know that there is a tool out there that will satisfy the needs of these users, that you're also going to be able to be involved closely in the management, administration, and rollout of, which I'll talk about in a moment. So I mentioned the user experience. This is really important, right? If your aim is to deliver self-service and to take away some of the tools that might come with the vendor's application, because the end user group is always going to be starting with the out-of-the-box data loading technologies that come with that application. And they start using these tools and they start pulling data into access files and spreadsheets. You have to give them something that is manageable, and then you have to show them the value add in terms of scheduling and automation. So we're constantly trying to really deliver on that user experience so that they have the self-service they need to get the job done quickly. And you can see from this chart how we've grown our business since 2006 when this first came out. So early on, we focused on Salesforce.com customers, where we saw a lot of the early cloud application adoption. And since that time, we focused on building out a suite of connectivity to other applications, whether it's Concur, Workday, Eloqua, Marketo. Really, we want to be the choice for connecting. You come to us and look for connectors, might be the SAP, Oracle eBusiness Suite. We want to help you with the cloud application integration requirements, especially in cases where you might be already in the enterprise using Informatica. You might know Informatica for data integration, data warehousing. There's an opportunity here to do both with our cloud integration technology. So you can see at the top of the chart here, we've actually expanded from the core application integration use cases to cloud master data management. And I think this is a really interesting area. Informatica has well-established multi-domain master data management technologies. A couple of years ago, we acquired a vendor called Siperion. So some of you today may be very familiar with our Informatica MDM hub and might have that implemented in your organizations. What we found is there's also a need for a lighter weight set of requirements, particular around the customer data that's out in the cloud. So earlier this year, we made an acquisition of a small company called Data Scout, and they had built a native Force.com master data management app. So it's an app directly built on the Force.com platform for Salesforce.com users. And this has really been exciting to see, in many cases in large organizations, a concept of two-tier MDM emerging, where one group, the Salesforce group, the group that needs to maybe consolidate orgs of Salesforce or just integrate those orgs or connect them to other systems. They need deduplication, they need data enrichment, data quality, data cleansing, multiple hierarchy capabilities. We'll give them what they need, but we'll also tie it back to the broader multi-domain master data management technologies that you might be already running from Informatica. So an exciting area, and you can learn more at informaticacloud.com/MDM. So let's talk about the second audience here in the area of really cloud data management and which audience needs which types of technologies. The second audience here is the cloud application owners. And this is really the traditional applications team that are being asked to implement and manage the rollout of a new app. So you all are thinking in terms of connectivity first and foremost, and you're also thinking in terms of business process. So as you can see here, we focused on delivering a marketplace of connectors, making it very easy to really build your own connector as well. There's this concept of really the long tail of SaaS applications out there. We're never going to build a connector for everything on the market. There's new apps coming online with APIs every day. So we've also introduced a Java API-based toolkit that will allow you all to build your own connectors using this technology. Because most of these APIs have a pretty well understood framework, and we want to make sure you can accelerate your application integration jobs with Informatica. So let's talk about the cloud application owners a little bit more, and I want to share a couple of examples. This is a customer, Ray Systems, who integrated Salesforce.com with their Oracle e-business suite service environment. And this was really interesting as a use case because it was very mission critical. This company sells gas detection technology, and when the Gulf oil spill happened, they had to be able to respond quickly. So we were able to help them really capture orders more quickly to these vital shipments and get them out there to the Gulf in a much more efficient, timely fashion. And we ultimately, on a tactical level, we helped eliminate a lot of the dual entry problems so their end users didn't have to go over and key information into Salesforce and then go over and look for information in Oracle. So delivering that seamless integration between these two systems. Another common use case that you may be familiar with would be around opportunities and orders. Your CRM users are really working through opportunity stages as they close. You want to automatically have that transferred into your order management system, or as a new order comes in, you automatically want to have that in your CRM environment. So that real-time process integration is a very common use case around cloud application integration. It's probably been the primary use case, connecting front office systems where so much of the cloud adoption energy has been with back office financial systems. So another use case is actually getting data out of your cloud applications. It's not just keeping information synchronized and connecting to more and more applications. It's also ensuring that you have a very agile way to get data out of your cloud apps, whether it's for compliance purposes, as you see here at Actelion, or whether it's for analytic requirements. So some large customers have to back up their cloud application data every day. They have to have it on-premise, behind the firewall, and backed up and safely and secure in their own environment. Others simply need to have an automated way to get information into their analytical environment so they can get the right reports out to the business. And we've created a lot of very fast automation because one of the things that's very clear about the cloud apps is that they're very dynamic. Say you're a Salesforce customer, you're adding fields, you're adding custom objects. It's very easy to configure these apps. Your integration has to be able to keep up. And we've added some automation here, in particular for this analytical use case, to automatically create target tables when there's a change and update your target schema so that your analytical environment is always up to date with your cloud application environment. So the next area I wanted to talk about is probably the most familiar to you all. Today it's the traditional corporate IT organization. This is where Informatica historically has been strongest. This is where a lot of companies are running our market-leading data integration technology, running our Power Center technology, running our master data management technology. So this is really the traditionally on-premise environment. And the kinds of things that you all care about here are not surprising, right? You care about administration. You care about ensuring the right levels of security and data access. The other area that this audience really is interested in is being able to build things. So in the last few releases, we've introduced the concept of templates, as well as a toolkit that I mentioned for building custom connectors. And one of the underlying pieces here that is key is this concept of our secure agent. So the secure agent is really the key to the hybrid concept, where you can have an on-premise environment and a cloud environment and have complete interoperability between these worlds. So for example, you can build something with the current technologies you're running, your Informatica Power Center technology, build a mapping or a maplet, as we call them. It might be a fairly complex workflow. Then you can publish that out to the cloud service where it can be run by a line of business user. You can then continue to manage and maintain what they can do, who can do what, when, and how, and they can have the power to really get their job done quickly. So at the same time, they can create their own mappings, really quick prototypes, if you will, and then you can bring those back into your testing environment and make sure that they're meeting some of the requirements that you have. And there's this concept of reusability and sharing. And that is thanks to this secure agent that is really powering Informatica Cloud. And this is the concept that we're talking to our larger customers about every day, which is what we call governed self-service. So self-service can scare a lot of IT organizations. We get that. So delivering an easy-to-use integration technology isn't necessarily your first priority. What you want is power and performance. So now with Informatica, you can really deliver both. You can give the self-service out to the business to allow them to move quickly and really be empowered and not have to come to you every time they need anything done. It's that concept of giving them what they need quickly to get the job done while you continue to have the trust that you require in terms of governance. So this is an interesting concept, and we're talking to really most of our customers today about how they can take advantage of this to really create an application integration layer for this growing SaaS application portfolio that's really coming in the enterprise fast. So this is an example of how this might look if you have a center of excellence or what we call an integration competence center. You might consider having one group with a centralized management console, and then you might spin out Informatica Cloud orgs or instances out into these environments and then centrally manage it. So interesting concept that we're seeing growing adoption around this concept of hybrid IT. So the last group that I wanted to talk to you about in terms of requirements is, of course, developers and ISVs, independent software vendors. Now here, if you're thinking about integration is really critical to a platform, any platform. It's critical to any application that you're building to go to market with. You have to figure out how to get data in, how to get data out, and how to make this seamless, how to continually connect the existing systems with the new system that you're delivering to market. And as an ISV, you have to decide when it comes to integration, are you going to build, are you going to buy, are you going to partner, what's your strategy? And increasingly, we're trying to make it easy to embed integration seamlessly into your application. You can see some of the examples of vendors who've done that today. So to do this, we've delivered the toolkit, templates, REST APIs. We've really tried and will continue to try in 2013 and beyond to empower ISVs to really take advantage of some of these underlying technologies. So it's really just baked into the app. The end users don't know that it's there, but you, the technology company who wants to focus on your IP, can trust that it is there and your application is able to really scale up and scale out. So all of this is part of the family of Informatica Cloud, whether it's cloud integration, cloud master data management, the integration platform. It is all unified with our core Informatica platform, and we're really excited about these 4 different groups and use cases and all of growing potential for really delivering better cloud adoption to your organizations. And you can see some of the companies that are currently relying on Informatica Cloud. If you go to trust.informaticacloud.com, you'll see we're running, in many cases, over 1 billion records a day through the multi-tenant service. So tremendous adoption, and I think there's just a huge opportunity for you to expand the reach of integration with some of these new technologies. And there's also an opportunity for you really to better align with the business who truly are moving fast and adopting these new technologies quickly. And you can get started today by going to informaticacloud.com and signing up for a trial. So Vance, that's an overview. Maybe we can open up for some questions.
Darren, it was a terrific overview, especially how you embrace the questions or the focus of so many multiple stakeholders. I think a lot of our attendees here really appreciate that because we've got a good variety of folks. So we do have questions, and so with your permission, let's go right to them.
Sounds great.
So Darren, let's start off with kind of the big mega trend that you noticed in the very early parts of your slides. You mentioned what you called a trend toward CloudFirst, and the question here is, what is the impact of CloudFirst on how CIOs and other stakeholders view cloud integration? We usually thought of integration as something that came after.
Good question, Vance. A lot of early vendors in this space who were really going to market with cloud applications were absolutely encouraging integration to be something that you thought of after, right? They would say, oh, we have an API, we have web services, integration's easy, and try to almost swim past it, if you will. But we saw actually a lot of early adoption of cloud apps not go well because the business really ultimately fell into this trough of disillusionment where there was the initial euphoria of a new app, but when that app didn't have the data that they needed to actually do their jobs, the adoption started to suffer, and whether it stayed or not, it didn't really deliver on the initial requirements. We've seen many cases where IT gets involved and there's a restart because IT knows how to do these things. They'll provide the access to production systems, especially ERP. So CloudFirst can mean a lot of things, but one thing that it means for sure is you need to really rethink the structure of your IT organization. One customer I talked to, they created this concept of embedded CIOs, where they have the CIO running the overall IT organization, but then they've put a CIO or a leader right within each business or division and empowered them to make choices, but to also follow consistent standards and report back to the central group. So instead of these groups just kind of coming online and kind of popping up in the shadows, in this case, there was still this consistency of management and consistency of overall standards management and guidance. So I think there's different ways organizations are structuring around the cloud. One of the things I've seen companies do is create a survey or a set of steps that the business has to really go through before they make an acquisition of a cloud application or platform. Because the IT organization understands what to ask, right? Whether it's security, integration questions, those are the domain of IT. Give the business the power to make certain selections and certain choices, but let's make sure it's consistent with our existing SLAs, with consistent vendor selection process. So I think this is a really interesting time for IT organizations to really kind of step back and think through their overall cloud strategy. And I think CloudFirst is a great stake to put in the ground as a sort of mandate within the organization.
You know, here's a drill down, and it says, we're always chasing the SaaS sprawl problem, not just from new applications, but from updates, which can come 3, 4, 5 times a year. How can Informatica help us keep up with both kinds of SaaS sprawl?
Well, I think that the SaaS vendors, especially the vendors that are in the enterprise, right, in the larger accounts, have made some changes to how they do upgrades. For example, new functionality might not be enabled, especially for end-user apps. Not a good idea to necessarily turn on a whole bunch of new features overnight and assume that they're going to understand how to run them. Salesforce.com has learned this early on. They needed to actually let the administrators and the people managing the service turn things on at their own pace so they can roll them out and do all the end-user testing that they require to ensure that the adoption's there. So that's one example, I think, of how vendors have gotten better, because a lot of releases isn't always a good thing, especially for organizations that have certain requirements, certain SLAs, certain things that just can't afford any downtime at certain times of year. And the concept of downtime is another. I think vendors have gotten better at doing lights out upgrades, or I guess it would be lights on upgrades, right, so that the system never goes down, but new functionality is delivered. So contrast that to how upgrades are done with on-premise software. It's pretty amazing. With a multi-tenant application, all customers are running on the same version of the software. The vendor doesn't have to support all these myriad of older versions of the technologies that are out there. And you don't have to go through the labor of wanting to know if your customizations are going to break as the new release comes forward. So it's just a completely different dynamic as you move to the cloud, but it still does require that the IT organization feels comfortable with the terms of the upgrade and is preparing for it and able to roll out new functionality in a way that makes sense.
Very good. So, Darren, here's another theme that you talked about that I had quite some interest in, and that is the idea of self-service. The question here reads, what does Informatica hear from customers about the most important features for making SaaS self-service for business users?
Another good question, Vance. I think self-service, as I said, is a double-edged sword. In our case, the main requirement where we can come in and help is data access controls. Who can access what information, when, and how? So, for example, you might decide to actually implement Informatica Cloud as a master org, and then you can spin out sub-orgs to your different divisions and satellite groups, but still make sure that there's this certain admin functions, certain data access rights are transferred across. So again, it's really governed self-service. And in the case of SaaS applications generally, most of the sort of enterprise class vendors are also working on the administration. They're working on really being able to do global rollouts. They're working on rolling upgrades. Most vendors have moved to sort of the concept of pods so that you can upgrade certain groups at certain times in your cycle. So it's really interesting to see this overall category mature. And the good news is that integration is right there in the conversation. And we're coming in earlier and earlier into the implementations, working with our systems integrator partners. And the successful app integrations are the ones that are really, the successful app implementations are the ones that are thinking through integration early and often at each phase of implementation.
What's interesting there about that is that it's not just an after effect, make sure my data is synced up after I've got it in a local system or in a Salesforce system or even my laptop hard drive. It's that integration now is actually part of the provisioning.
Absolutely, and let's not forget about data quality as well. It's the age-old garbage in, garbage out, which is why we're so excited about the cloud master data management technologies, being able to help organizations in the migration process, making sure that only good data is coming into the new app. You're going to see a whole set of new technologies coming out next around data archiving, data masking. What we're doing in Informatica is we look at our whole platform and we determine what's going to move to the cloud and when. And we're not just flipping it over onto, say, an Amazon instance and saying now you've got a cloud version of Informatica's technology. We're running it through this cloud platform and making sure that it is taking advantage of all of what you would expect in the cloud service, whether that's subscription pricing or being able to manage the adoption and usage. So we've really changed our whole business around how we can deliver these kinds of solutions to our customers while at the same time making sure they're tied tightly into what they're already doing with Informatica.
Darren, I think you're looking over my shoulder here because I got a question here. Let me see if I could find it that touches on this idea of the data master or master data management. Here we go. How does Informatica deliver and maintain the data master? And do you find that folks are considering putting their master data in the cloud?
Yes and yes. So the need to put more and more master data in the cloud has driven why we've introduced Informatica Cloud MDM. It's still mostly customer master data. So we even have our large multi-domain implementations, maybe putting more customer data in the cloud, but connecting back to the hub for more multi-domain, maybe it's product or other areas that are in the on-premise environment. So as I said earlier, we do see this two-tier phenomenon, but yes, more and more customer data is in the cloud. And one of the main use cases we're out talking to customers about is whether or not to consolidate or integrate multiple orgs of Salesforce. So we're out talking to a lot of large companies about how we can deliver a master data management solution just for their Salesforce implementations to get timely, relevant, trustworthy information across their CRM implementations in various divisions and departments. An interesting time.
Here's another question that goes beyond the topic of data. Can Informatica help me integrate workflow or processes across on-premise and cloud?
Yeah, so we have the concept of task flow within Informatica Cloud, where you can string together multiple tasks, multiple jobs to run in a sequence. You're going to see much more from us in this area as we get into more complex use cases. This is, again, a reflection of the maturity of the category, where early on it was okay to have a set of applications for specific use cases, data loading, data synchronization, replication, and so forth. But we are seeing a need, an increased demand for more advanced developer capabilities in the cloud. And we have introduced also the concept of templates, where you can build fairly complex workflows and then publish them to Informatica Cloud. You can actually go and see a whole set of templates on our marketplace at informaticamarketplace.com.
I'm glad you mentioned templates. Why don't you detail a few bullet points, a few capabilities of your templates? I think a lot of folks, both from the developer side as well as the implementation side, are interested in that.
Sure. So templates are really a key value proposition is the reusability. So we have a template designer that allows you to pick from a palette of functions and create an orchestration and create a specific workflow or a process. An example might be opportunity to order. You need the connectivity. You need to be able to connect to, say, the Cloud CRM app and the on-premise ERP app, and then you're really creating that overall orchestration in the template. You're then publishing that into Informatica Cloud so the user can simply type in opportunity to order, see that template there, and then really quickly take advantage of it. There's two benefits. One for the developers to create custom workflows with the underlying technology, the developer tools, and then two for the consumption to really accelerate the project time, the implementation time. And then we're seeing some developers starting to publish their own templates out to the marketplace. You can even potentially put a price tag on them. But we haven't seen a lot of pricing yet, but that's out there. That's possible because you're really starting to build your own cloud integration apps using your underlying technology. So a big focus for us is to deliver out more of these tools for developers. We have a number of REST APIs powering Informatica Cloud, and we want to make it easy for you to embed integration into your apps.
Very cool. And your slide actually mentions a 30-day trial. How do people get started?
You can visit informaticacloud.com. The trial will ask you a few questions about your environment. You will be prompted to install the secure agent, and you can start building jobs within minutes. So it's all there on informaticacloud.com website.
Wow, that's great. That is a good reason to be CloudFirst. Darren Cunningham, Vice President at Informatica Cloud, thanks very much for a terrific overview of the latest incarnation of Informatica Cloud. You said you're in your 13th or 14th edition. This is terrific. And especially thank you for taking so many questions.
Thank you, Vance.
And we're going to leave a link up here with some other terrific download information as well as the link to get the free trial from Informatica. So thanks again.